This is Truthful Manipulation, where truth is the truth and reality is made real and clear to understand. I'm Dave Kelsey, and I'm here today with my co-host, H. Daniel Mujahid. On this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation, we come to you on a very special night of the year, Christmas Eve, 2025. We thought what we would do today would be to talk to everybody about forgiveness, about leaving what's hurting people or what you've been hurt by and letting it go and turning that into forgiveness where we can all be treated equal with equal love. Daniel, can you comment on that?
One of the attributes, if you will, of the Creator is forgiveness. It is even said that the God, and is forgiveness. The Creator, He forgives and forgives and forgives, and this is a value. This is a virtue that should be incorporated in the mindset of the human being, because none of us do things that we're not proud of. And so there are moments when we will want to be able to be forgiven, and we want to forgive others. So with forgiveness, it requires understanding. And even though Americans are split right now as to how we feel about each other, for whatever reason, whatever ways we've been manipulated to think that we are enemies to each
Daniel,
other.
I don't think that I don't truly believe that we are enemies of each other. I think that you're right. There's been serious manipulation over the last few years that have brought us to a point where people think that they hate each other.
Yeah.
But I don't actually believe that. But what the question then is, what's it going to take to get everybody to understand that we're all brothers and sisters in this together, and we function better when we all believe in each other?
Yes.
So when we look at this, particularly on Christmas Eve, when families are together, and we know in families there are different situations, but family get-togethers always are hard for a lot of people for different situations, and we don't know what those are or what those could be. But we can tell you that there is always peace. In last week's show, we talked about supernatural or different looks at what God would look like. We looked at it from an Islam point of view, we looked at it from a Sikh point of view, and we looked at it from a Christian point of view. But when it came down to it, we all were striving for the same thing, looking for the same purpose, looking for people to be treated as the equally created human beings we are. And Harry made a really good point last week, and some of you may not understood exactly what he said, because he made the comment that we don't walk through life and have a freehold. Now, for those of you in the States, you might not understand the way that real estate worked in the UK. And a freehold was when you own something outright. A leasehold is when you're only leasing it for a certain period of time. And his point was, we only hold a leasehold on life for a number of years. We don't know what that number could be. It could be anywhere from 0 to about 110 today is what your leasehold on life could be. So why during that leasehold on life, why wouldn't you try to do everything in your power to do and be the best that you could be instead of trying to follow what you're seeing going on by those in power today?
This idea is plaguing us in our lives, in our neighborhoods, in our churches, masjids, temples, synagogues, school grounds, places of business. Anywhere we gather now, there is a challenge for us in terms of always having in the back of our mind, are we in the presence of human beings, or is someone going to be inhumane and act with evil intent or devil motive? And so now it's hard to find that peace that Dave is speaking of, but it can come if we let it. If we be the peace, we have to be the peace, each and every one of us. You be the peace. Don't look for someone else to be to show you peace. You be the peace. And that is the spirit that lays the groundwork by which our interaction is defined. And a lot of times you'll find that the reason why we are not at peace is not the other person, but it could be something in our development, training, or something that was whispered into us that gives us an idea that is false. How do we address this? How do we correct our own self? Is the question Dave is raising.
As we're sitting here on Christmas Eve and we reflect on the year behind us, and during this season, we look forward to the year ahead of us. We all have decisions to make. Those decisions can be good, they can be bad. We can follow in the example of those that we've seen over the previous year, or we can vow that this next year will all be better, that we'll look to understand how other people feel, that we won't be as judgmental, that we'll look to promote good instead of evil, and most of all, that will look for peace, love, and understanding of all human beings.
And that's a very controversial point right there, Dave, you're making, because on that day, as you know, in terms of its practices, I, being a Muslim, for example, I may not practice the process of Christmas as done in the tradition here in the West, but the concept by way of following the example that you bring up. You said example, a good example. That being that we speak of on that day, Jesus, yeah, we call him, his name Isa, but Jesus, the Christ. As a Muslim, I can take benefit, learn, be inspired, and strive to be like his example in terms of his consciousness, the way he treated orphans, the way he treated the poor, the way he treated his neighbor, his family members, his partners, his participants, his followers. I can learn and I can be like that with no question. And I want to, and I see him as a wonderful guide, not an enemy to me as a Muslim, but he is me in the sense of being one who would want to be in accordance with what God had in his image of what humans would be. Jesus being a sign of that, an example of that, There's no problem for me to see those qualities in the prophet that followed him, Muhammad. So a lot of our conflict, then this Jesus, don't forget, this is a Jewish rabbi. That example is being identified as a model of life for me. We miss that sometimes. So we may not worship the Christmas day the same way, but the values of that being that is reflected on for that day, those qualities must be in me if I say I'm a Muslim.
We look at this, Daniel, and we see how, particularly in my case, the evangelical Christian church has performed over the last couple of years. And I want to point you to something that I think is very important when we talk about Jesus. You have to understand, never once in his existence ever did he say, worship me. Never once.
Wonderful point.
Did he say
Wonderful
that?
point.
He said,
Wonderful point.
follow me. He didn't say worship me. And now we're in a situation where you've got Christian people holding the Bible in one hand and preaching hate out of the other. That's not Christian. That's not Christ-like. That had nothing to do with what Christianity, what religion, what a superior being had to say or be. This is man's manipulation for his own benefit. But remember, Daniel talks about Jesus being somebody that should have been emulated, that we should have looked up to, that we should have followed. Once again, Jesus Christ never said, worship me. Not once. He said, follow me. The problem that I see today is we've got world leaders that don't deserve to be followed. They don't deserve to be followed because they've proved to be evil, vindictive, retributive leaders that have surrounded themselves by an incompetence. And that's not what Christ preached ever. He preached, be the best that you can be. Do the best that you can do. Don't let somebody else judge you because they're not the one that should be doing the judging. Don't judge other people unless you're ready to be judged yourself. And particularly at this time of year, give people a little bit of grace. You don't know what they're going through. You don't know what they've been through. And you don't know how hard of a time some people have just going home. So remember, you always are loved by God Himself. He said, love me, follow me. He didn't say worship me. Daniel, you got any final words for us on Christmas Eve?
Yes, I would like to, following that context, I would like to challenge any that are Muslim leaders or Muslim to find a better, find any human being more Christ-like than Muhammad, and you will find yourself unable to do it. Now, I'm saying it to you because I'm respecting what Christ said and did, and he never did he say he was God. As Dave said, that came later after the Council of Nicene, hundreds of years later, they came up with that as a principle, and the Christians adopted it. But Jesus himself, he said the one that sent him was greater than he. And he also told us that the one that he worships is our Father, not his Father. Therefore, we have to understand what we mean by our principles and ideas regarding Jesus. I find Muhammad to be a wonderful example, a most excellent example. As Jesus said, the one that would be excellent would be called Ahmed, which is the same as Muhammad, the word. And I think that we missed the boat, and we have to go back and correct ourselves in our thinking and our understanding to see the unity, to see the oneness that God has done for the evolution of prophecy from Adam right through Muhammad. Now I know the Christians, they stop at Jesus in the sense of Jesus saying that the one that would come after him would be this or that, which is descriptions of Muhammad. But that's okay if we keep reasoning and thinking and looking and learning together. If the Creator is one, why should we be divided? So we have a lot to grow up on in the future. That's our challenge, is to really, as is said in Scripture, to really bring the peaceful idea, what God established in His own image for mankind, to bring that into reality, or what you call bring it to the earth. And we can do that if we do it together.
As we finish on Christmas Eve, we should all try to be like Christ. We should all like to try to be as Mohammed, and we should all try to act as if we're one of the gurus, like we talked with Harry last week about. But it all points to the same thing. Remember the higher being, and do keep the faith, and continue to believe that there's something better there for all of us. And with that, that's this week's episode of Truthful Manipulation. If you'd like to comment on today's show, you can do that at truthfulmanipulation@gmail.com. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe at truthfulmanipulation.com. Pick up a copy of our book, Truthful Manipulation, available worldwide on Amazon. And we hope that you have a very, very Merry Christmas.